Hi everyone, I'm Finn, and this is part 2 of my mini-series on Indo-European mythology. In part 1, I already briefly talked about the gods and goddesses, but in this video we'll focus entirely on the deities of the Indo-European mythology. As I already mentioned in my previous video, it is not probable that the Indo-Europeans had a fixed canon of deities, or even assigned a specific number to them. The term they used to refer to a god was deivos, which literally translates as celestial. Deivos has numerous reflexes, for example in Latin deus, Old Norse tyr, Sanskrit deva, Irish dia, etc. Also the gods are exempt from death and disease because they are nourished by special elements that are usually not available for mortals. In Indo-European traditions, gods were seen as dispensers or the givers of good things. Although certain individual deities were charged with the supervision of justice, in general the Indo-European gods did not have an ethical character. Their immense power, which they could exercise at their pleasure, necessitated rituals, sacrifices and praise songs from worshippers to ensure that the gods would in return bestow prosperity to the community. An interesting side note, for most of the gods, linguists have been able to reconstruct the names in the Proto-Indo-European language, but it's important to understand that these names are just theoretical. There is no way to know for sure how the Indo-Europeans called their gods. So now let's look at some specific deities, but first we need to divide the gods into different groups. We got the heavenly deities, the nature deities, and the social deities. By far the most well attested of all Indo-European deities was Deus Ptyr, whose name literally means Sky Father. The Sky Father was a prominent deity in the pantheon, and needless to say, he was the god of the sky and the heavens. What's interesting about him is that many later supreme gods like Zeus, Jupiter, etc. are all adaptations from the Proto-Indo-European Sky Father. In other words, the Sky Father lived on in different cultures, he just took a slightly different shape. Contrary to Zeus and Jupiter, however, the Sky Father probably didn't function as the ruler of the pantheon. The Sky Father also has a daughter, who is known as Hausos, the goddess of dawn. Therefore she is also sometimes referred to as the Sky Daughter. She opens the gates of heaven every morning at the beginning of the day. Hausos is generally seen as never aging or born again each morning, and she also has quite some following in four daughter traditions. In Greek, where she is known as Eos, in Roman mythology where she is known as Aurora, in the Baltic as Ausra, and in the Vedic Usas. Next are the Divine Twins. They are a set of twin brothers found throughout nearly every Indo-European pantheon. Mostly they are represented as young men who with the help of his teeth pull the sun across the sky every day. The Divine Twins are often differentiated. One is represented as a warrior while the other one is seen as a healer or concerned with domestic duties. In my previous video I already mentioned that Indo-European traditions were animistic, which means that they assigned a divine presence to every physical entity like mountains, lakes or like forests. But of course the most prominent and most powerful physical entity is the earth itself, or Degom, the Earth Mother, as the Indo-Europeans called her. This idea of seeing the earth as a mother perhaps is the most widespread and best known concept that the Indo-Europeans have provided. I mean, we still use it sometimes today when we refer to the earth. Anyway, the earth goddess is portrayed as a vast and dark house of mortals. She is associated with fertility and growth, but also with death as the final dwelling of the deceased. She also was likely the consort of the Sky Father. Their duality is associated with fertility as the crops grow from her moist soil nourished by the rains of the Sky Father. Next up is the weather deity Perkūnos. He has been reconstructed as a god of lightning and storms. His name either meant the striker or the lord of oaks, and he was probably presented as holding a hammer or a similar weapon. Thunder and lightning had both a destructive and regenerative connotation. A lightning bolt can cleave a stone or tree, but is often portrayed in connection with fructifying rains. This likely explains the strong association between thunder gods and oaks in some traditions. The striking of devils or evildoers is a motif that lived on in the Lithuanian Perkūnas and the Vedic Perjunia. A possible echo also lived in the Germanic Thor. Of course there are many more nature deities, but it would be impossible to go into all of them. Instead we will cover two more deities, the Fate Goddess and the Smith God, and these two are deities from the social group. It is highly probable that the Indo-Europeans believed in three fate goddesses who spun the destinies of mankind. This concept appears in nearly all Indo-European mythologies, and the earliest attested set of fate goddesses are the Gulses in Hittite mythology, who were said to preside over the individual destinies of human beings. They often appear in mythical narratives alongside the goddesses Papaya and Isustaya. In the Greek traditions, the Moirai are mentioned dispensing destiny in both the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Moirai also lived on in Roman traditions, and traces of other fate goddesses can also be found in Old Norse, English, Baltic and some Slavic traditions. Lastly, we'll take a look at the smith god. Although the name of a particular smith god cannot be linguistically reconstructed, it is highly probable that the Indo-Europeans had a smith deity of some kind, since smith gods occur in nearly every other Indo-European culture. For example, the Hittite Hezamili, the Vedic Tvaster, the Greek Hephaistos and the Germanic Wayland, the Irish Gelnu, the Lithuanian Tilayavelik, the Ossetian Kurdalinos and the Slavic Svarog. Generally, two recurring attributes are given to these myth gods. First, they make the chief god's distinctive weapon. Indra and Zeus's bolt, Luke's spear and Thor's hammer, etc. And second, they are often portrayed as lame and crippled. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time.